to our Artists in Residence virtual open studios. We've been lucky to have the chance to work with residents from the Oolite Arts Home and Away program for the last few weeks. We're really sad that they're going to be leaving us soon. We've really enjoyed getting to know them and to work with them in the studio, see what they've been making. It's been a fabulous almost 5 weeks. We're elated to continue our partnership with Oolite Arts, one of Miami's largest support organizations for the visual arts. Today, we're going to hear from the residents, and they'll each have a few minutes to present the work they've been making while at the ranch. Residents, when you see your name pop up, you'll get the chance to start to introduce your work. It's the same format as when you first came and introduced yourselves. And let's get started.
My art practice is focused on primarily ethnobotanical, geological, archaeological, historical, and biographical themes related to African diaspora and Native American cultures. My research focuses on a walking practice, and my studio walls provide a space for creatively developing ideas and projects. I want to thank all the wonderful Anderson Ranch staff that I work with and that made the experience truly exceptional. Charlotte, Paul, Esther, Leah, and Chef David, among others. I spent every day during my stay in the studio or working in the photo lab, printmaking lab, and one time in the digital lab. My available studio space in Miami is very limited, so I wanted to take advantage of all the space, SPACE in all caps, while at Anderson Ranch. I began some large drawing / collage works and completed one small print edition, silkscreen. I'm going to finish a larger edition once I get back to Miami. I'm not there right now. I had to depart a little bit early due to my father's death, but we'll continue working and developing projects once I'm back in Miami. I did take advantage of the photo lab to make some prints from photographs shot during my artist in residence time in the Everglades and during December. And it was really nice to have the opportunity to do that since, I had just basically returned from the Everglades and went to my studio and then went to Colorado. Being able to work in a larger scale really was special and gave me a chance to develop some ideas that I'd been wanting to flesh out for a good while. While I was there, I continued to develop works of the night sky from the 1860s across South Carolina, Georgia, and Texas. A series of vultures as sacred avatars, and the multi-layered print and collage works of serpentine forms derived from insect architecture and root systems. I'm very grateful to be among this diverse and talented group of artists from Miami, and that Oolite Arts has such an amazing program that I am part of, and I want to thank everyone for that.
Jesus, I'm second. I'm Freddie Rodriguez. I'm a filmmaker. I came to work on Project Ballroom, which was a feature film that I got an Ellie Award for in 2019, and I started developing and writing it last year. I finished that. And then what I did was I started working on a short film and thinking about this short film. While at the Anderson Ranch, what I decided to do was submit to Oolite Arts cinematic residency and turn this concept of a short film into a feature film. So basically the film is called The Efficiency, and it's a Spanish language horror film. Right now it's in short form, and it deals with gender identity, sexual orientation, and Miami's politically complex Cuban American landscape. Basically the long line is when an unwanted omen takes possession of an ailing young boy, his volatile mother, enlists the help of a cheating ex-lover, a trans landlord, and a dowdy aunt to save the boy from demonic possession. So basically it's pitting one against the other, which is a theme that's current in everything we do. Politics, whatever, it's either you're with me or you're not with me. Next slide. I think I have one more. Yeah, and the story is part allegory, part horror film, part family drama with the nods to dark comedy. The efficiently is about a recently arrived Cuban mother who has a descent into madness when her young son becomes obsessed with a popsicle stick after moving into a creepy Hialeah efficiency. The style is going to be in black and white. It's a take on a modern neorealism, and we look more like that. Roma was an example of modern neorealism, of Italian neorealism from the 20s. And the environment is the location, and the environment of the film, which plays a big part of the movie, is in Hialeah, which is Miami's working class neighborhood, which I live very, very close to. And Hialeah, the film is Hialeah is a Spanish-only monochromatic patch of warehouses, ethnic shopping plazas, chain link fences, and residential homes chopped up into efficiencies. That's how they pay their mortgage. And people rent these efficiencies for $800. And it's kind of like where the people who are coming over from Cuba now clash with the exiled Cuban community in politics, culture, everything. So that's it. That's what I've been working on.
So very grateful, first and foremost, to be in Anderson Ranch and having all the help from all the coordinators from the different programs, I guess, and also be part of this amazing group of artists from Miami. So it's been a wonderful experience. So while in Anderson Ranch, I've decided to open up and expand my practice. I've never done ceramics before, so I launched a series of banana peels, which are golden in the interior and glazed in the exterior, either with black or white. And the idea is to have an installation of these banana peels on laying on a gallery or a art space floor. Sort of a different way of engaging with ceramics and sculpture. And also my main practice is drawing. So during the residency, I had the opportunity to work on this commission of this work by Oolites, commissioned by Oolites, which are these interior spaces. This is all charcoal and paper. It's around 82 by 52 inches. And it's all on charcoal. And the idea is having these Victorian spaces pregnant with power, host or reuse as storage spaces for these letters, billboard, Hollywood sign letters, spelling bananas. And also, well, at the ranch, I expanded and really learned a lot about 3D printing. So I'm printing these foam signs that I would later use to make some photographs in spaces. So it says it's a McDonald's sign. I'm still in the process of doing the arcs, but instead of saying McDonald's, it spells out Macondo, which is a mythical city mentioned in 100 Years of Solitude. And also, I decided to make some prints. So taking advantage of all the resources at Anderson Ranch, and really having fun going from one place to another, and enjoying the process and learning from this interdisciplinary approach to art making. Oh, and this is a series of superheroes. I also I made sculptures, 3D sculptures of these Latin American superheroes, which I'm going to paint and sort of portray as if they were toys. And it's been such a journey to really expand and make them a reality. I think that's about it. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Today I'm presenting a series of photographic compositions that I have been working for the past few weeks here at Anderson Ranch. This has been a lot of trial and error to come up with the technical solutions to create these images, as well as developing cohesive content, concept, and form. So I got here with a specific idea of what I wanted to do. But all of this changed once I faced the difficulties of the landscape, as I wanted to shoot this whole series outdoors. I started experimenting with projections, bringing this landscape into my studio space and recreate scenes with these characters, but that did not work either. So this approach required long exposures that the model or the person being photographed will not have been able to stay still for the required amount of time that needed. So I started composing my own landscape out of painted paper, which I photographed in high resolution, and then digitally cut out and assembled them. After that, I superimposed these characters that I photographed, recreating a scene, some of them relating to the act of escape or migration. These characters were these paper mache masks that I brought with me from Ecuador. And I have been using these for quite some time for different projects, including multimedia installations, videos, and paintings. And these scenes have specific characters that in a way compose a short visual narrative. Each one or each group with their own stories. And these stories intertwine with those stories of the other characters in some way. So this is the beginning of a large series that I'm developing in my head, and I have titled this series Érase una vez, or Once Upon a Time, which makes reference to children storybooks. And this is to create or recreate surreal imageries and events that are not far from reality, and how these stories intertwine between these characters or events as well. So these photographs are printed about 4 by 5 feet in dimensions. But I believe when the series is completed, I'm considering working in a book format as well, with probably some text accompanying this series as well. Thank you.
Hello? Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Vu, and these are what I worked on in my time here at the ranch. So this is one of the first drawings I did when I got here. It's just on craft paper, like the paper we used to like line the tables, but it was just something I wanted to get out really quick. And this is part of a series I did on wooden panels, and they're inspired by the walks I've been taking on the trails along the ranch. Just how the snow dances with like the natural elements. It was really beautiful and inspiring. And this is a new skill that I picked up here at, I don't think it was a coincidence that they put me in the ceramics studio. Lou taught me how to throw clay on the wheel, and I just picked up really quick. And this is like one night, this one tray here. And I have the glaze pieces that just came out of the kiln. Sorry. And yeah, I'm totally hooked with this process. All right, next. And this is the largest painting that I worked on during my time here at the ranch. I don't get to work this large, and they were kind enough to give me this really like massive movable wall. So I did this piece on canvas. And that table set and chair set is the ones we have in all of our dorms. So I just thought it'd be cute to immortalize that. Yeah, I don't know if there's, oh, and this is the latest thing I worked on. They're kind of like a diptych. Yeah, this is just kind of the first few layers of paint that I laid down, more of a progress shot. But yeah, that's what I've been working on during my time here.
I recorded a video. It's Riggins, Shia Riggins, aka Vanta Black. And before the video, I just want to give a special thank you to Paul and David.
Photo I took of the mural that I completed last year before I came on this trip. This is the first portrait that I did in 2020. This is a print of that drawing. This is the first drawing outside of my memorial portraits that I worked on after the onset of COVID. So I printed those images out. I started these 4 pieces here at the ranch.
Hold on, we're gonna go back because we had an issue with sound. Thank you.
Here is some of the work that I've been working on during my stay at the Anderson Ranch Arts Center. These pieces I had started before I got here, and I worked on them during my stay. Here are some prints of work that I had done in Miami. This image here is the last photo I took of the mural that I completed last year before I came on this trip. This is the first portrait that I did in 2020. This is a print of that drawing. This is the first drawing outside of my memorial portraits that I worked on after the onset of COVID. So I printed those images out. I started these 4 pieces here at the ranch. I explored scale, texture, surface, and I wanted to honor the women that came before me, the Black women that came before me, myself, and the Black woman that's coming after me. This is my daughter, Aaliyah, myself, my mother, Carolyn, and my grandmother, Helen. This experience was very valuable for me. I learned a lot here. I tried to really focus on storytelling and channeling the things that I do best, which is portraiture and capturing someone's essence on a surface and being able to tell those stories visually. I'm really thankful for this experience. It was eye-opening. I think that any artist that comes here can benefit from this experience. And I also think that there is room for growth within this institution. I would like to see more of a representation of the communities that this institution serves at different levels of leadership here, because I think that there is a sense of emotional support that is required here if you stay here for 5 weeks. And I think that there's room for improvement. I think that to be an institution that promotes diversity and inclusion, that also has to be reflected in your staff. And I'm really, really thankful that I met the artists that I met. I learned so many things from these artists. And I think that it is valuable that they are a great reflection of the art community in Miami. And I hope that other artists decide to take advantage of this opportunity. And I'm really thankful to Oolite for offering this type of opportunity to local artists, and especially artists who are parents, because oftentimes that can stop you from pursuing opportunities like this. And I'm glad that I did. And thank you.
My name is Almaz Wilson, and I'm a multidisciplinary artist, originally from Maryland and now based in Miami. I've spent the last 5 weeks at Anderson Ranch as an artist in resident in the area of sculpture. A lot of my work here has been very much process-based, working with wood, paper, plaster, different pigments, and using materials like sand and snow to cast shapes. A lot of my work ends up melting into each other. So materials that I use around the studio will find its way back into the work. And it all becomes blended together after creating multiple pieces. I'll be creating an installation in the next couple of days with all of the materials and objects that I've made while here at the ranch. And it will be recorded from several different perspectives. So from the perspective of the hands, using a camera attached to the body, as well as cameras that will encompass the whole space of the installation. A lot of my work is also very much performative. And so my goal here at the ranch has been to be able to capture this performative aspect within the work as something as a whole. So that will be the next creation of all of the pieces that are together. So this is a shop image from the studio. So you can just see how I work a little bit. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here and listen to us speak about our work. And hopefully I will be able to share with you with the ranch images from my final installation once it's complete. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, I'm Sue Montoya. I'm a photo-based artist, and during the home and away residency, I've been working on a body of work titled Clouds Dissipate, in which I revisited objects and landscapes from places that I've lived in the past. This work culminated in a solo show at the Art Base in Basalt and a workshop with a group of students from a local middle school. Next slide, please. So I took this photograph in 2004 and developed it 15 years later. You can say I'm a procrastinator, I guess. Though it was a latent image for many years, the day I took this photograph, I spent a few minutes, what seemed like a few minutes, maybe an hour or so, staring at this mountain range through the fog as the clouds vanished. I was visiting my mom's family and it was quiet, and it was early in the morning, and I felt the most calm I'd ever felt. And throughout my lifetime, I found myself revisiting this moment, and many times when I saw it, peace. Next slide. So as I mentioned, in moments of chaos or melancholia, whatever it may be, I searched for that feeling. And in 2014, in Miami, there was a huge construction boom. And as we saw in a previous image, all of these mounds appeared because of the construction. And so they were reminders of the landscape that I grew up around. This image was taken 15 years later, so last year, on my way to the place that I had seen initially, right? Next slide, yes. So the earth grounds the works in this exhibition, the earth being the gypsum, the clay, the different kinds of earth that you see throughout these different places. The places featured are Miami, several cities throughout and villages throughout Honduras, and also Gainesville, Florida, which I lived in temporarily throughout grad school. Next slide. So the lush foliage and the red earth and the bright sky of the springtime are shown throughout the images. This image here, however, is part of the workshop that I conducted on Tuesday with a group of students from the Basalt Middle School. And in this workshop, we talked about the memories that we held near and dear to our hearts. And in this particular case, we talked about one of the young artists lived across the street from an amusement park in Mexico. And so their favorite memory was waking up and walking outside and seeing this dinosaur slide. And so they created this drawing as a result of that memory. And then we also created clay sculptures, and they created a clay version of this dinosaur. And I really treasure this experience because it was just beautiful to hear their stories. It was also conducted in Spanish, so it felt like a homecoming of sorts. I'm really appreciative to everyone at the Art Base, at the Anderson Ranch, with also Oolite, for these opportunities. And I think this specific workshop will be something that I carry with me and I hold in my heart for a long time. Thank you.
Hello, can anyone hear me? Okay, my name is Amanda Keeley. I am a multimedia artist. The last few residencies I've done have been focused on printmaking. And so when I had the opportunity to come here to Anderson Ranch, I wanted to go back into my roots of sculpture. And so I was really excited to utilize the facilities, work with the staff who have been amazing, and have this opportunity, and to thank Oolite Arts also for providing this to all of us. You can just do the next slide. So I designed a font, which is a font that I wanted it to be like slightly abstract and slightly architectural. And it keeps like kind of feeding back into my work. You can just do the next one. This is a print that I made. I'd been in a residency in Italy for a little while, and I was looking at all of the beautiful terrazzo floors. And then I went to Belgium and was in a printmaking residency at Franz Meisterl Centrum. And so I started basically doing digital prints of terrazzo floors and then overlaying them with statements of empowerment. This one means she who flies on her own wings. So I wanted to basically embed statements of empowerment into architecture, was kind of my ultimate idea. I work a lot in Miami with public art projects, and I do a lot of neon work, which is, has a long history in Miami. But when I'm working in neon, I'm also looking at the terrazzo floors. And so that was always a dream, was for me to try to figure out how to work with this material. So terrazzo basically is, basically it's a cement with an aggregate. Aggregate's usually like a marble or a shell or any kind of material that you embed into the concrete. I found a company that was able to provide me with materials, and this is actually an eco epoxy, and this is the letter L out of my alphabet. Prepare yourself for the next slide. It's me grinding. So it's a pretty labor intensive process. And at first I was a little scared about it, to do something totally different and outside of my comfort zone. But I thought, if we're going to be at Anderson Ranch in this incredible facility, that I should push myself into something that I don't normally do. So what I've been doing is I've been grinding down these terrazzo pieces. So it's basically an eco epoxy and a aggregate into using these letters. And so this one actually says CALM. So I wanted it to say calm. I just finished it last night. I'm still repairing one of the pieces, but essentially I'm going to mount them and have them slightly float off the wall. And now that I'm comfortable with the process, I've totally dived into it. So I've just poured 3 more. I'm going to be grinding them on Saturday. I'm going to be working right up until Monday when I pack. But it's just so exciting to be here and to just immerse myself in something entirely new, and to push myself into something that I've dreamed of doing, but I was afraid to do. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Hello, my name is Tyrone Williams. I'm a digital illustrator, photographer, and so on and so forth. In my time here at Anderson Ranch, I really had a lot of time and like mental capacity to really kind of dissect what my work is about. Aside from it just being about Black queer livelihood, I really wanted to kind of dig deeper and figure out how, aside from that, it connects to me. And what I came up with was identity. I think identity is something that shows up in all of our work, has different perspectives to it. So especially when tackling the concept of queer identity, because queer identity lives within the lack of the binary, the genders, I worked on a series of illustrations while I was here that removed any gender markings from bodies. This piece is actually very recent. This was from a couple of nights ago, which I'm also like, this was done marker and pencil on paper, which is kind of taking it back analog for me since I've been mostly digital for the past 6 years. Yeah, these pieces are just a series of figures that I was just inspired by this Black and white photographer that I just wanted to kind of commemorate, you know, the Black body and the melanatedness in a Black body. A lot in my cartoon work, I often draw these little highlight bubbles on my characters' skins to signify their melanin, which is such a powerful force, you know, as a Black person with Black skin. So really just, you know, playing with contrast, playing with ink on paper again for the first time, and just kind of like stripping these bodies of any gender markings, because gender actually doesn't have anything to do with identity. It's a social construct that was built, you know, around, you know, our patriarchal system. And within my work, I'm actively trying to break that down and show, you know, queer identity as just something that's more fluid, something that has more of a conscious understanding to it, as opposed to it just being something taboo. This illustration was actually a commission that I worked on while I was here, featuring a slew of amazing queer chefs and artists, Kelsey Liu, Moses Sumney, Precious Okinomo, Angela Demayugo, and Silver Counselor. It's for just this dinner event that Silver's doing. But I've just been really enjoying playing with this series of mounting my illustrations on real photography. The photo is actually something that Silver shot in Redwoods, North Carolina. So I really wanted to find a way to incorporate the illustrations of each character to really immerse into the photo, which is something I've kind of been playing around with a little bit before I came here. So yeah, this is that. This is another example of that. This is kind of a combination of both of those series, working over real photographs and also removing gender from identity. So this was shot by an African photographer by the name of Almaz. It was originally a photo of a group of boys jumping off of a cliff into the ocean. And I was just, you know, I've like refigured it and kind of taken away the face markings and like the gender identity from them. And I call it The Great Escape, because it seems to me that these characters are escaping the world that we live in to find a new world underwater, which taps into this piece. So a lot of my work kind of tackles, you know, Black queer livelihood, but also like an underlying part is Black people's relationship to the water. That's been my own journey, exploration through understanding as a Jamaican Caribbean person, our relationship to the ocean. So this is kind of a modern approach of what I would consider a future underground Miami, what the scene would look like. As we all know, Miami is rapidly flooding each and every day. So it's predicted that in about 20 years, we're gonna start seeing major effects of these floodings. So this is also kind of talking about the climate crisis that's happening right now, while also just, you know, showing the resistance, you know, just the natural resistance of Black bodies, clearly not, you know, letting it affect them, because Black people are naturally resistant to all, you know, forces of life that we've seen through history. So they're continuing to party as the water is rising. But this is actually just a small little clip that's a part of this comic narrative that I've been working on. I didn't actually include any photos just because still working in large parts. I was able to complete a couple of pages in my time here along with the other projects. But that will further kind of explain this imagery in the future. This is another just, you know, illustration part of the series that I did. It's kind of deconstructing identity, removing gender from that. And then this was also something I worked on here. So this piece is called Black Mirror. And it's supposed to represent gender dysmorphia, which is essentially the awakening of queerness in someone's body, recognizing that you are not in the skin that you feel most comfortable in, and recognizing that the person that you see in the mirror is not necessarily who you consider yourself to be internally. I think this is something that, you know, probably everyone has experienced at one point of their life, but due to society have kind of brushed it off or negated it. I know I have as a kid for sure. And also really just like creating more representation and imagery around this, because this is more of a normality than we realize. And often with a lot of trans concepts, queer concepts specifically, and a lot having to do with like Black or brown bodies, these concepts are often erased or just like not seen in, you know, a public sphere. So I've been really actively thinking about how I can use my work as cartoons, as illustrations that can speak to younger generations to really show them what queer identity could look like outside of a violent scope. And yeah, this is an example of that. Yeah, and then I also had an opportunity to get into the ceramics department, which has been really fun. I haven't worked with clay in over 10 years, over 15 years. So to get back into it, it was really innate. It's almost like an ancestral feeling that it just came to me. I knew exactly how I wanted these heads to come out. And they do kind of have like an ancestral look to them. So I glazed them a nice jet patent black. I'm awaiting to see what they look like when they get out of the kiln tomorrow. But yeah, I think I want to figure out how to tie more sculptural work to my cartoon work. I think my time on the ranch has just been, oops, sorry, I guess that's it. See ya. Oh.
Hey everybody, my name is Philip Karp. I'm an artist and photographer. My work questions the language between editorial photography and my own personal practice of image making. I guess I could just start off by saying thank you to Anderson Ranch and always Oolite Arts. You know, I'm really appreciative for this experience. When home, you know, you can get caught up in the flow of like this everydayness. But being here at this residency has sort of helped me slow down a little bit. You know, home is different for everyone, but comfort is always important. Being away from familiar settings have somewhat been a refresh on my mind. This state, I mean, Colorado is beautiful. It's like snowing outside right now. It's kind of insane. You know, it's so different from Miami. The way the terrain meanders compared to South Florida's flatness, the dry, cool air here versus its humid, hot atmosphere of Miami. I'm actually excited to go back, but at the same time, I'll carry this essence with me. And I definitely plan to explore more of this part of the States outside of my immediate surroundings. I came here with a few plans, but to be honest, I barely stuck with any of them. I've enjoyed allowing this experience to guide the flow and methods in which I work. At first, I was going to rescan a lot of old film in my archive, thinking that the low temperatures are just going to keep me indoors. But I actually been enjoying layering up and being outdoors, even with this snow. When we got here, I bought a few things online and it took way too long to arrive just due to weather, but trying to not allow these hiccups along the way to hold me back. So I gathered a lot of images on this trip between taking my own photographs as seen here, collecting flyers, magazine clippings, and other materials, as well as images in my mind. For the last year or so, I've been overlapping my own personal images to form what I've been calling overlays. So with these new pictures, as seen here, I'm thinking about the way we view images, also interested in different methods of display. The mystery of photography partially relies on the camera's clear description, yet completely unreliable gauge of reality. What we hide and what we reveal show more about experiences than the literal descriptions of what's in front of us. I have one more slide also. This is a screenshot of my website. I'm actually really excited because I've had blogs and like temporary sites like, you know, Instagram, social media before, but having a platform outside of social media to share my work has been really exciting. This is one of my goals and it kind of seems really simple, but it's a way that I've been figuring out how to best present my work publicly. So, you know, the site will change, constantly evolve. Like us. But it's a current sample of work online that has definitely been able to clear a big path off of my checklist. Also, shout out to all of you, all 13 other residents that I've had the time to share, space and time with. So thank you all.
Oh, hey. So I'm Natalie, and the work that I've been making at the Anderson Ranch is kind of going through 3 different studios: the sculpture, the printmaking, and ceramic. I want to thank Zach, Leah, Paul for all the support and assistance in all the technical things that I was dealing with. So when I got here, I decided to embrace the grid, knowing that it's not a new thing and knowing that it's being done for so many years by so many wonderful artists. So I wanted to give myself the opportunity to experience my own relationship with it. And this is the first image. I think I took this image maybe the second time we were here, and I kind of noticed how the snow, when it fell on the concrete, was kind of leaving these marks on the ground. You can go to the next slide. So I started thinking about, I was located in the sculpture studio, and I wanted to make a large scale drawing directly on the wall with plaster, with compound, because of my direct experience with being as an art handler and kind of learning how to plaster and compound walls for the past year. So this was the first sketch. I was intending to create a relief on the wall with the plaster and then cover it with charcoal, and kind of still thinking about these notions of labor and process. And I was very interested in seeing Saul and Kenny, who are the people who maintain the ranch. And basically every day they were shoveling snow and clearing our paths. And every time in super snow at night, all I can think of them the next day, because they did so much work throughout the day, but the next day they had to come back to exactly the same thing. Next. So I spent 5 weeks making paintings, doing prints. I was working on an aqua tint and doing the grid on the wall. You can go to the next slide. This is the example of the aqua tint. And I was kind of very interested, particularly in how the grid, how we are so confined within the grid, and how basically I started seeing grids everywhere around me, even in the waffles that we were eating every day with coffee. And this idea of breaking the grid, disrupting it, or creating my own grid is what's kept my mind going in terms of labor, in terms of thinking about what the work that I do represents and what are the questions that I'm posting in terms of what I have inherited as a worker. And this aqua tint is a great example of how kind of that emotional control that I always take on with materials, it's challenged by the processes of the aqua tint. And you can go to the next slide. And this is the wall. Here I did the relief with the compound only on the bottom part, basically where my body, the top layer that I don't know if you guys can see it well, but the top layer that's relief, that's exactly the same height of my body. And the top is just drawing. And I'm actually finishing today the floor. I'm actually covering the floor with white sand squares as well. So it's going to be a site-specific drawing that will be destroyed Monday before I depart back to Miami. And again, it's kind of thinking about all the endurance and all the process that I have to go through making these works that basically get to be destroyed. And this is my concern and my constant questioning with labor and all the things that sustain the things that make us be very comfortable. I don't know if that's the last one, but yeah, bye.
Hi, my name is Joshua Veazey. I just want to start by saying thank you so much for this experience, Oolite and Anderson Ranch. It has been so wonderful just to have this 5 weeks to just dive into anything that we want. And I'm just so not used to having this much amount of time to really focus. So it's just been really wonderful. And we can kind of start in with the slides. This is a print that I just finished up today. This is actually just 2 colors of the print. So I work a lot with photographic imagery, and I was trying to figure out how to translate this photographic imagery and work my hand back into those pieces. These are essentially photographs from my archive that I printed out and hand cut and then rescan them. And then what we did was I separated them by color and then ran them like a it's called a CMYK print. These actually do not have black, so it's just the first 3 channels of that process. We can go to the next slide. I've been working a lot on paper actually, which is sort of not new to me, but I haven't worked on paper in a really long time. So I had been experimenting with different transfer techniques and using images from my archive and then also embellishing them. This isn't the best photo of it. I can kind of show you, you can kind of see the sequins and all the different embellishments that I used, which I hand sew onto the materials. We can go to the next slide. This is another work on paper using completely different process. These are just like photo prints that are then layered with acrylic, with a glitter, with like a glitter paper that I produced. So a lot of these have just been sort of like experiments with different mediums and things that I had used in the past, but in new ways. So like really diving into the process of producing these works. We can go to the next slide. This is like the first CMYK print that I produced while here. This is like a small 8x11 sheet of paper. I believe the image size is significantly smaller. I believe it's like 4x6 or 3x6. This was sort of like my first intro into this process, and I was really happy with the results. I made an edition of 8 of those prints, as well as an edition of 10 of the first slide prints. We can go to the next slide. And then I also had a plan while I was here to work on these woven tapestry paintings that I've been producing. I use images from my archive and then have those woven into a fabric, which I then sort of do all of these different interventions with the fabric. I could deconstruct them, I bead them, I dye them, bleach them, sequin them. This is one that I completed while here. This one is all hand beaded with a heat transfer. This is just a small crop of the overall image. And then I think there's one more slide. Nope. There's not. Well, thank you guys so much. It was wonderful sharing my work with you.
Hi, my name is Jamie Gershon. I'm a photographer, filmmaker, turned multimedia artist at Anderson Ranch. Thanks to Oolite and the ranch and my coordinator, Lou, Paul, Leah, Zach, everybody who took my email and helped me come up with a solution to my problems or the ideas that I had. So I started off the beginning of this residency finishing my first feature documentary called Birthright, which is the closing night film at the Miami Film Festival next weekend, which is a huge honor, and I'm just so ecstatic. And it was so awesome because I got to share the film with the residents and I don't know, see a completed work that's taken 5 years in the making. You can go to the next slide. So then I got off the computer and I got into ceramics. And these are vessels that I created. I took some of my photos and I collaged all the residents onto the two pieces in the back. In the front is an older photo. And then along with the help of Lou and Paul, we silk screened them onto clay and then made them into vases, which is really exciting because nobody was sure it would work. And it came out just beautifully. Next slide. And these are the two pieces of the residents sort of interacting, which my hope was that they would sort of speak to each other. So each 7 and 7 on each piece. And I just love the way it came out. And the way kind of you place them and it has a different feel or a different meaning or a different dynamic between the two pieces. Next slide. I have been talking a lot about my ice cube helmet, so I wanted to share my process. I have a series called The Quarantine Characters, which is our series of self-portraits that I made beginning in the pandemic to help quell my anxieties about what was going on. So I have the toilet paper thief and the quarantine queen, and I wanted to make additional images to go along with the series here. And I found it sort of, it was harder to show isolation here than Miami. Like you put a mask on in Miami and a bikini and it's very striking, but here everybody's so wrapped up and it's so cold and you're already kind of isolated. So I decided I wanted to make this ice cube helmet. And so this is my first attempt and it didn't work. The water dripped out. And if you'll see, like there's a box within a box and the water is supposed to sort of fill in there and we're gonna pull the middle box out and it'll be this ice cube mold that fits on my head. But when I went out to check it, there was no water left. So we can go to the next slide. So we made modifications with the bag. And that was really cool because no water came out, but I left it in for days thinking this was the solution. And when we pulled it out, parts of it didn't freeze. So you can see in the image on the right, sort of jagged. And when we opened the bag, all this water poured out. So then we thought maybe the bag is retaining heat, which is keeping this ice cube from freezing. So next slide. Nope. I guess there is no next slide. There's another slide that that has the current attempt, which is we remade the box, Zach and I also want to thank Leah because she stepped in too and taught me how to use the table saw, which was huge for a photographer, filmmaker who sits at a computer all day. And so now we've resealed the box and it's outside and we're just hoping maybe it freezes and the weather cooperates and goes below freezing. But it's snowing, which is a good sign. And I have just enjoyed so much experimenting, being away from my computer, talking with the other residents, thinking in a different way. You know, I got quoted in an article saying I slowed down and I laughed thinking, did I really slow down? And I think in a lot of ways I did, and I get to see myself a little bit and have a little understanding and perspective on who I am as a person and who I am as an artist. And that's just time that you really don't get when you are in your home space. So I'm in endless gratitude. I'm so looking forward to going home and taking the things I've learned here and expanding on the processes that I've fallen in love with. And I'm just forever in gratitude to the people here who have helped me realize some of this work and who help us make us comfortable in certain, you know, everybody who's out there cleaning and shoveling and making sure that we have food. Chef David, who is like filling our bellies every night. It's just, this is an incredible experience and I'm so honored to be here. So thanks.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, everybody, for sharing your work and for letting us see what this experience was like for everybody. We really love having you here. We're going to be sad to see you go. So thank you, everyone, and good night.